What is going on, everybody? Welcome to Skin in the Game. I am your host, Austin Thompson, aka OZ, and we are back with another weekly episode. I am excited. I love this live streaming kind of side of things. It's fun. You get to kind of go off the dome. I've got some notes, but I enjoy interacting with comments and just kind of free flowing the episode. It doesn't have to be so structured, and we can have a real conversation. So my first question to Chiefs fans before we dive in, before we get going, is how angry are you? Let me know in the comments. Let's have a conversation because this past game was really rough. It was hard. It's hard to watch. It's hard to react. If this episode would have came out right after the game, Sunday night or even Monday, I think my reactions, my just how I reacted to the game would have been so much worse than it is today. Having 72 hours to really digest, see how the Chiefs played, and seeing some other things come up on social media, see some other analysts talk and kind of give their opinions. And it's not as bad as it seems, but it still leaves a lot of anger. I'm still pretty angry at, this season and especially the way they've played, the Chiefs have played the last few weeks. Before we dive in, before we get going, I want to give a special shout out to some guys. The Spoken podcast. So shout out to Lance and Trev over there. Those guys have been a huge inspiration to me as far as starting my show and doing the live side of things as well. They have a show every Saturday, I think at 11 a.m. Check out their Facebook group as well. It's an awesome Facebook group. You can just look up The Spoken. They've got over 6,000 members. It's a sports Facebook group. This should be streaming in their Facebook group as well. So it's an awesome group of guys, and they've got a great community where talking sports is fun. So it's a lot of debate. It's a lot of going back and forth. There's a lot of Chiefs fans who love talking about the Chiefs. So shout out to those guys. They've been a huge inspiration. I've been DMing Lance and we've been talking, and he'll definitely be on the show soon. So shout out to those guys. So let's get started. We've got a lot to talk about. So we're going to talk about week 11. We're going to talk about the Broncos. It is, like I said, it's a gut punch. It feels like a gut punch, not just losing to the Broncos, but losing that way, losing a game that the Broncos didn't play that great. They weren't playing that good. Not saying that they weren't bad or they played bad, but it wasn't a game that the Chiefs should have lost. I think they had many opportunities. You have two drives at the end of the game where it's 19-16. You could put the game away, and then you get the ball back again where it's 19-19. To go win the game. Those are vintage Mahomes, last minute drives, game winning drives. That's vintage Mahomes, and he's let us down and twice in one game. So it's very frustrating. So I kind of want to dive into my 4 takeaways. I have 4 takeaways from the game that I think a lot of Chiefs fans probably reside with. And the first one is, I think the Chiefs simply this year specifically, but especially the last few weeks, have been outcoached. I think Andy Reid needs to get those guys accountable. This is a position where when Eric Bieniemy was the offensive coordinator, he would hold those guys accountable. He would be the nitty gritty guy that would get in your face, say the things that maybe push you over the edge, but it held you accountable. He would say the things that that needed to be said. And I just don't think that they're being coached very well. I think there's not a lot of accountability going on. The accountability is just not there. They're not being held to the accountability. I was listening to 96.5 on the way home today, and Carrington had a good point. The talk show host there, he talked about Travis Kelce not doing post-game, in interviews after the games. He's not wanting to be held accountable on in front of reporters, in front of fans, but he'd rather go on his podcast where it's questions asked by him and his brother, and he addresses the media, or he addresses the concerns that Chiefs are having. when in reality, there needs to be accountability. There has to be those tough questions. There has to be those tough conversations. You're not you don't grow from accountability by hiding from it. And two, I think Andy Reid and Mahomes do a pretty good job of being accountable. They'll acknowledge the faults, but I think a lot of time they're too politically correct. I think they are, they're not going to throw anybody under the bus. They're going to say the right thing and they're going to do the right thing, but they're not being as I think that just kind of that nasty accountability, that they need to call guys out. We should be hearing the Chiefs have a closed players team meeting before the game this week, something like that, where Mahomes is tearing into guys and he needs to tear into himself. Or there needs to be a guy, Chris Jones, who could come out and tear into these guys. Travis Kelce can, but there needs to be accountability. It's just the Chiefs are being so outcoached. So just you see Sean Payton at halftime, and a lot of people maybe missed it, but Sean Payton threw shade at halftime from the interview coming back out, where he said the Chiefs are a first half team. We like our chances in the second half, basically, is what he said. That's a coaching issue. That's a coaching problem, that you've got other coaches calling your team out, calling your coaches out because you don't have the right game plan. They know what kind of team you are. That's a problem. That is a problem. You are being outcoached. And then there's others. We're not even talking about the game aspects yet. We haven't even talked about the Chiefs in the red zone. And some of this is on Mahomes, but a lot of it's play calling. The Chiefs go 1-4 in the red zone against the Broncos. And one of them that didn't happen is because of penalties. We get first and 15 or first and 10, ball in the 15. Kareem Hunt has a 12-yard rush. We got first and goal. And Jawan Taylor's lining up offsides or lining up in the, getting illegal formation. So a lot of it's coaching, a lot of it's not holding guys accountable. And then it's also just play calling itself. They're not running the ball. And we've talked about it last week. We're going to talk about it again this week. Kareem Hunt is rushed 13 times and averaged 4.5 yards a carry. Basically every two carries, he's getting a first down. He's getting 9 yards. And we don't want to rush him 25 times because he's a little bit older, or he maybe can't take 25 carries. Why are we not running the ball more, being more balanced, keeping the defense honest? Why are we not doing those things? Why are we not running the ball? So my second point, and this is going to hate a lot of people, Mahomes is not the same. Mahomes he's different right now. He is not the same person. He is not the same guy. He's just not. And it's no hate, but it's just what I see with my eyes. It's what I see him doing on the field. It's the throws he's making. It's the decisions he's making. It's one of those things where you struggle to watch a guy who was going on a trajectory to be the greatest quarterback of all time, and now he's playing like Kirk Cousins. That's hard. That's hard to watch. It's hard to have such a fall, and maybe not all of it is his fault. Like I said, it's a combination of things. Play calling specifically is one thing that affects Mahomes, but it's also him. It's also he doesn't have the ability to do the same things he did 4 years ago. The deep ball is just horrific. If you have time, listeners, if you have time, go look up a YouTube video, all of Patrick Mahomes passing touchdowns. It's, probably like an hour-long video on YouTube. You don't have to watch all of it. Watch the first 15 minutes of it. You'll see a ton of highlights. And the first 2 years in Mahomes' career, 2018, 2019, where he was playing super crazy and he was that magic Mahomes, you'll see how many times the deep ball, where we thought he was this deep ball guru, he could throw it to anybody, he can make any throw. Watch in reality what the receivers are doing on those plays, on those touchdowns specifically. But even if you watched a highlight reel of Mahomes's, watch a highlight reel of Mahomes' career and watch those first 2 years. It's Tyreek Hill going to get the ball. It's DeMarcus Robinson making plays, jumping over two guys. There's so many more than you really think. And I saw a stat right before I got on stream here, and it was talking about the chemistry between Xavier Worthy and Mahomes. And it was given statistics. They've had so many throws over 30 yards in the last 2 years. And here's how kind of the percentages break down of like who's at fault. So it was basically 42%, almost half, we'll call it 50% basically, was either Mahomes or Worthy's fault. You can't really blame one or the other. One didn't get separation on the throw, but it was also a bad throw, or vice versa. So you can really blame it, but more than half the throws lean with Mahomes too. but it's also Xavier Worthy. A quarter of them, so 25%, are strictly just Mahomes' fault. Bad throw, overthrow, short, whatever it is. So you have 75% of these deep balls going to Worthy where Mahomes has some kind of problem in it. And again, I'm not just taking away from Worthy. Worthy still has a lot to grow as a route runner and grow as a receiver. But Mahomes is 75% of those faults in these interactions, in these throws with Worthy. So Mahomes has a lot to grow. Mahomes, he's regressed, and I don't know if we'll ever get, we're ever going to get Mahomes back to 2018, 2019, 50 touchdowns, 5,000 yards. I don't know if that's in his, in his bag anymore. I don't know if it's in the cards. I don't know if it's possible. My third point is I think if you compare last year to this year, the defense, I think, is the same. I think the defense has played really good for what they've been given. You have 3 games basically where they've held teams to like in the teens, low 20s. And you have a game against the Raiders where they hold them to 0. The defense is playing very well for the personnel, for Spags. I don't really blame anything on Spags right now. I think he's doing an okay job. He could be better. He's being a little predictable, and teams are kind of picking up what he does when he blitzes, things like that. There is room to work on that, but I think the defense is still rocking that bend, don't break mentality. They're still doing the, we'll give you an 80-yard drive that's 6 minutes, 8 minutes long, but we're only giving up a field goal. And they did that in Denver. Denver kicked, 5 field goals? I think they kicked 5 field goals. It was a bend, not break mentality. And I think that's enough to win. You saw the Chiefs do it last year. They won 15 games last year with that same defense. The defense didn't do any upgrades. They didn't bring in new guys or lose guys. They paid guys. They brought them back. And it's the exact same defense, exact same coaching. And you're getting the same results. The Chiefs losses. So being 0-5, the losses that they had this year, their point separation is 4 points. So they have 5 one-loss games. It's 4.4. That is a difference in the points between the losses versus the wins, the 5 wins that they have. The point separation is 19. The Chiefs are winning by 19 points when in their win column, and they're losing by 4 points in their loss column. So there's got to be a problem here where you're getting a consistent defense who's giving you help on games that you're winning, but your offense is not helping on the games that are close and you're losing. The Chiefs were 11-0 in one-score games last year. They're 0-5 this year. Now that some of it's reverting to the mean. It's reverting back to reality because it's not realistic to go 11-0 on one-score games. That's just not realistic. But to be 0-5 also is not realistic. And it seems maybe that's just the way the cookie's crumbling right now. I don't know, but it's there has to be a reason why you're not being able to finish one-score games, because a lot of these games are simply because the Chiefs have made mistakes, penalties, or play calling, or something they've done is wrong, and they lose that way. When last year they were making the right decisions in crunch time, what they've known to do for this whole dynasty run, and they won those games last year, they're losing them this year. And then finally, I think it's just the Chiefs are beating themselves. The penalties are just out of this world. They have 3 games this year where they have over 10 penalties. And again, it just goes back to accountability. It goes back to coaching. Those are the 2 things when it comes to penalties. So let's dive into the actual recap of Broncos versus Chiefs. So my takeaway line, if I had a line to say, is the Chiefs didn't get beat. They beat themselves. As we talked about, being accountable, play calling, those things really matter when it comes to the NFL. I think the Chiefs do a good job of like really giving other teams credit. Like I said, they do very political answers when it comes to, oh, this was a great team. He's a great quarterback. When in reality, they're not that good. Like they would say that about the Raiders after beating them 31-0. Oh, that's a good football team. Well, it's not really. But I think what's happening is those things that they're saying politically correct are now almost true because of the way the Chiefs are playing. Like they almost have to actually respect these teams because they can't play up to the same level as the teams that they're losing to. They actually had to respect the Broncos because the Broncos, came out and won. They came out and backed up the talk. They have to respect the Chargers. They had to respect the Chargers week 1 and they lost. But it seems that they may be going off of what they've had in the past, which is kind of this magic mentality. They're going to find a way to win. They're going to find a way to get to the playoffs. They're going to find a way to win the AFC West. They're going to find a way, all of these things. In the reality, they just don't. They haven't this year. Okay, so let's get into some of the stats and talk about really where the Chiefs went wrong, I think, in against the Broncos. So number one, Mahomes throwing 45 passes is not in the cards anymore. Again, we talked about running the ball. Mahomes is just not, he's not as accurate. He's not making as good of decisions when it comes to throwing the ball. We see 3 overthrows, 2 to Worthy and 1 to, I believe, Marquise Brown. 2 overthrows, and actually Marquise Brown was underthrown. And the Chiefs got lucky in ways against the Broncos, and they weren't able to move the ball very well. This is a credit to the Broncos, though. They do have one of the best defenses, but they were missing like 3 of their best players on defense. So you can give them the credit, but in reality, they don't deserve as much credit as you think. But so the Chiefs got 2 defensive pass interferences that equaled like 90 yards. Like they got 2 decent defensive pass interferences, basically, that move their drives for them and put them in scoring position. They're lucky, basically. Those were lucky drives. So the score could have been worse. It could have been something where if they couldn't move the ball, you're looking at 22-14 is, the final score. They couldn't move the ball, and they got lucky. And some of those, sometimes you just throw it up. You hope for the best, hope your guy makes a play, hope you get a penalty, something in that nature. That is common. I would say that's not like that's not, but you shouldn't be basing, like, your offense can't be based on, hopefully we get a defensive pass interference and get 40 yards. Your offense can't be based on that. Your offense can't be based on throwing 3 deep balls in the first 2 possessions and not connecting on one of them. You got to hit one. And you hit one later in the game to Tyquan Thornton, who's a whole different conversation. That Tyquan Thornton came out of nowhere. He played for the Patriots, got cut, Chiefs pick him up, and he's kind of like this guy on the practice squad, but it turns out to be like a great story. He fills in for when Rashee Rice is out, and he's got this crazy chemistry off the bat with Mahomes when it comes to throwing the deep ball. And he's much taller, he has better hands, and he's a guy that goes and gets the ball. He's a guy that goes up top apex, catches the ball. He doesn't just allow the ball to drop into the basket, and he's got the speed. He has the speed to be that deep ball threat. So when Rice comes back, the Chiefs just stop playing him. They move him to special teams. And then you see the one guy that gets connected against the Broncos, 61 yards, Tyquan Thornton. I think Tyquan Thornton and Marquise Brown, they need to switch. Marquise Brown, he's getting paid a lot. He's had a great career. He's a notable name, but I think Tyquan Thornton should be getting 3rd receiver reps. He should be wide receiver number 3, getting way more reps. If you want to throw the deep ball, if you want to be a deep ball team, you have to put out guys that can actually catch the ball, who will go get the ball. So we talked about Kareem Hunt. Kareem Hunt got 13 rushes and averaged 4.5 yards a carry. Kareem Hunt has been as exceptional as you can ask a guy who came off the couch last year. You picked up. He's been great, and the Chiefs refuse to continue to go with him. They refuse. Mahomes has decided he doesn't want to run anymore. He's decided that he's not Josh Allen. He doesn't want to scramble. He's going to continue to try to throw the ball and throw it in spaces and in areas and overthrows and try to make throws versus getting 6 yards on a scramble and running out of bounds. They need to spice it up. The offense is stagnant. It's boring. It's a lot of RPOs. It's a lot of quick throws, slants, screens, bubble screens. There's no real variety. You kind of know the same thing. They run the ball from shotgun. They don't ever run the ball from center. When they do run the ball from center, you see a lot of success, especially when Isaiah Pacheco was playing. When he would get outside, they need to get back more to, I wish, it's one of those things. You love Mahomes. You love what Mahomes has done. And Mahomes is so good because of the magic. He's good because of the magic. He's good because he can 360 spin around, throw it 60 yards, and somehow a guy catches it. But you almost wish, and maybe Mahomes needs to learn this as he gets older, as he progresses, as he gets more tape on him, as people start to figure him out more and more. He needs to turn into more of a pocket Tom Brady than he is Magic Mahomes. And I don't want to necessarily take away the Magic Mahomes, because I do believe in the saying that playmakers make plays. I truly do. And you have to allow them to make plays. You have to put your guys in position to make plays to do those things. But the issue is that he's doing too much. He's trying too hard to be Magic Mahomes versus letting those situations happen. And I think if we're going to put it on a scale, like if 100% is Magic Mahomes and he's at 0% Tom Brady, he needs to be at like a 70-30. And right now he operates at 100-0. He needs to be at 70-30. I'm going to be Magic Mahomes 70% of the time, be myself. But sometimes I need to be Tom Brady. Sometimes I need to be Alex Smith. I need to be step back, 3-step drop, slant, give me 6 yards. I need to be turn around, hand the ball off 25 times a game. You don't have to be Superman all the time. You don't have to do that. You don't have to be that person. The team needed it then, but you have the personnel now. You have great receivers. You have a tight end, 36 years old, who's playing like he's 26 years old. You have one of the best offensive lines you ever had. You have a defense that is holding teams to middle of the road 20s to high teens, that 18 to 23 range. Those are winnable games. Mahomes is supposed to be the greatest quarterback, and there's a potential he's going to miss the playoffs. Tom Brady missed the playoffs one time during the dynasty of his career. If you don't count injuries, just seasons he played, like full seasons he played, missed the playoffs one time. Mahomes, if we're going stat for stat, he still has a chance if they do miss the playoffs, and we'll get into the playoff scenario later. But if he does miss the playoffs, it's going to hurt the legacy of Mahomes. And the quarterback gets all the praise when the things are good, and the quarterback gets all the hate when the things are bad. It just comes with it just comes with the job. So mentioning Kelce, I mean, he played like I said, he was 26, finished with 9 catches, 91 yards, and a touchdown. And you can't have your 36-year-old tight end being the number one option anymore. It doesn't work offensive wise. This was supposed to be Kelce's last ride. This was supposed to be one more shot at the Super Bowl, one more chance. I'm going to be a contributor to the team. I'm going to be a motivator for the team, but I'm not going to be the team. I'm not going to be the offense. That's not what I'm going to be. But a stat that came out, I heard on the radio as well, and since Rice has came back, basically the targets between Kelce and Rice are equal. It's like 38 targets each. And that's too. I'm not hating on Kelce for doing good or getting a lot of targets because he gets open or he's just got the chemistry in Mahomes. The problem is not with Kelce. The problem is with the offense. You can't ask a 36-year-old to carry your team, have 91 yards, have more than your 3 young receivers combined in that game. It wasn't even close. If Tyquan Thornton doesn't catch the 61-yard, the next guy down is like 30 yards in the game. It's not close. You can't ask. Rashee Rice is supposed to be considered one of the top 10 receivers next year. He's going to ask for top 10 money. Well, you can't go and get 38 yards in a game and ask for top 10 money. It's not going to happen. Xavier Worthy, who is supposed to be the fastest guy on the planet, is what I heard, after running his 40-yard dash, can't get more separation from a corner who you picked up at McDonald's. He can't get any separation. And he's supposed to be wide receiver number 2. He's supposed to be the yin to the yang to Rashee Rice. We're supposed to have the receivers of the future, and we're throwing it to Travis Kelce, who's got 7 games left in his career, possibly. The offense looks bad, and it's, again, shout out to Kelce. He's playing great for his age. Last year, we thought, man, he was not playing very good. He came back this summer, got in the gym, and came back more focused, and has played great all season. He might win the Triple Crown for tight ends, receiving touchdowns, receiving yards, and catches. I mean, he might win the Triple Crown at 36 years old for tight ends. So, third downs, you go 5 for 13, and then on the opposite side, the defense gives up pretty much multiple long third downs, 3rd and 15, 3rd and 7, 3rd and 9. You're just not going to win games that way. You got to convert over 50% of your third downs. You got to have longer possessions. You can't keep giving the ball back to the other team. You have to convert on third downs. And Mahomes' interception in the red zone is it's a killer. That is a gut killer, gut wrenching kind of play where it's like, what are you doing? And the throw was horrible. I mean, it was horrific. It was one of the worst throws he's probably ever had. And a few plays before that, he had the second worst throw that got called back where he lobbed it and the guy took it for pick six, but it ended up being a penalty. So here's my bulletin board if I had one, or here's my if I was going to give the Chiefs kind of a quote. What's going on, Adam? Let me throw that up there. Adam, what's going on, buddy? So Mahomes is not Superman right now. We abandoned the run game, and red zone failures and predictable play and calling is killing us. That's my biggest takeaway from the Broncos game on the offensive side of the ball. So now let's go to the defense side of the ball. So the Chiefs allow 342 yards, 295 passing, 59 rushing. Now, last week's episode, I thought it was going to be a complete flip. I thought that Denver was going to come out. They were going to run the ball. They were going to try to have long possessions. They were going to hold the ball as long as they could. They didn't want to get Mahomes on the field, which they completely don't have any respect for him now. But they didn't want Mahomes on the field. They wanted long possessions. They were going to run the ball. I was expecting them to try to go over 100 yards in rushing. I know that they were missing their number one running back, but RJ Harvey's been really great, their rookie running back. So I figured they were going to try to run the ball. They averaged 2.8 yards a carry, and Bo Nix did whatever he wants. Bo Nix outplayed Mahomes. And Sean Payton had a great game plan against the Chiefs. Like I said, the defense played well, and the defense is good enough to win a Super Bowl, win playoff games. They don't have to be the 2000s Ravens. I'm not asking Spags to be the 2000s Ravens. I'm not asking Ray Lewis to come back and be Nick Bolton. What I am asking is to hold teams into that 20-point range. If you can hold teams into 20 points, you have a real shot to win games. At least you should with the personnel the Chiefs have on the offense. So I have no hate right now against the defense. Even Chris Jones played great. He's had a lot of scrutiny over the last few weeks. You felt like he wasn't trying. The game against Jacksonville, he let the guy get up twice off the floor after slipping over his own feet and score the game-winning touchdown. You saw a lot of minimal effort, and you see Chris Jones get multiple QB hits, multiple pressures, and he gets a sack. That's the Chris Jones that you need week in and week out. You saw good scheme for the most part from Spags. Very first play of the game, Shamari Connor coming off the edge gets a sack. And you're like, oh, wow, here we go. I guarantee a lot of Chiefs fans were like, oh, wow, here we go. This might be rough for the Broncos. This might be tough. And credit to the Broncos. They had a better offensive game plan. They play the Chiefs twice a year. They know exactly what the Chiefs want to do. And they just had a good game plan. You can't be upset. I don't blame the defense one bit. It is coaching and offense, the way that we're in. The 5 losses that the Chiefs have, you have a 1-score loss to the Chargers. You could blame on the defense, but I would blame Chris Jones more than anything. You have a 1-score loss to the Eagles, where we give up a red zone interception off of the Travis Kelce drop. You have a loss to the Broncos. You have a loss to the Bills, where your defense played good enough for you to get a win. They played good enough. I'm not going to say they played perfect, but they played good enough. They weren't that bad. So you have these losses where your defense has played great. Your defense has put you in positions to win, and the Chiefs are just not turning that offensive engine up to get you a win. And they're not doing good enough on the offensive side of the ball. So my quotes or analysis for the defensive side here is the defense is being wasted. They held Denver in the red zone 1 for 5. That is the bend, don't break mentality of the Chiefs defense. You gave up 1 touchdown. You gave up 1 touchdown. You went 1 for 5 in the red zone, and you still lose. You gave up 22 points. You had 2 chances to win. Your defense got stops twice, or bend, don't break, held them to field goals. 19-16, you have a chance to win. You go 3 and out. Screw your defense. Your defense bends, doesn't break, holds them to a field goal, and gets you the ball back 19-19 with the greatest quarterback in the league to win the game. And what do? 3 and out. Horrible. It's horrible. So let's move on to the penalties. because this is part of the accountability that I want to talk about. And kind of, if I was running the team, this is how we would handle it really fast. First, Jawan Taylor gone. We have Jalen Moore back. We got Josh Simmons back from his family issues. Jalen Moore, you're playing right tackle. Period. We cannot have penalties where you get, again, it's 1st and 10 on ball on the 15. You hand the ball off to Kareem Hunt and he runs it down to the 3-yard line. You have 1st and goal on the 3. You get 4 chances to get that ball in the end zone, and you get a 5-yard penalty for illegal formation because Jawan Taylor can't line up correctly and is afraid to get beat off the edge. On a run play, by the way, he's not lining up correctly on a run play, not even a pass play. It's not even we're talking about a run play, and Jawan Taylor's still lining up incorrectly. Still lining up incorrectly. So the Chiefs had 10 penalties for 69 yards. This is the other crazy stat. The Broncos had 10 penalties for 147 yards, and they still lost. The Chiefs had half as many penalty yards, same amount of penalties, and they still couldn't capitalize off the Broncos having 10 penalties for 147 yards. I mean, it was an ugly game, but the penalties have to stop. You can't have multiple. Andy Reid is known, one, for being pretty much perfect after the bye, and that is gone. There's no trust in Andy Reid being good after the bye. How are you going to trust Andy Reid to be really good after the bye when a performance like this, a performance where you come out soft, you come out flat, you come out with 10 penalties in a game? That is not Andy Reid. That is not the stigma that Andy Reid, protrudes to his players. They are meant to, when they come out a bye, they're supposed to be the most prepared team according to his stigma. He was 22-4 coming off the bye in his career. And a lot of those wins were actually more with the Eagles than they are the Chiefs. He was 13-1 with the Eagles, and now he's 9-5 with the Chiefs coming off a bye. But still, he still had that, he still had that record, and it meant something. It did mean something. It was a stat that would go around, and you had to realize when you play Andy Reid off the bye, man, it's going to be tough to beat him. That is in consideration when you're talking about, if who you're playing, and it goes into the game of you get an extra week to prepare for the next team. They had an extra week, and you're playing in a division opponent that you play 2 times a year with the same personnel. The Broncos didn't add a bunch of personnel from last year. And the difference is the Broncos played the Chiefs really good last year. They won, if you remember, they won the first game of the season on the blocked field goal. In the second game, the Chiefs lost 38-0, but that was because they were resting starters. So the penalties have to stop. Andy Reid has to get it together. And so here's my line for the penalties. If you lose the turnover battle, go 1 for 4 in the red zone and rack up 10 penalties, you deserve to lose. That is exactly what is true. Is the Chiefs deserved to lose that game. They didn't play like they should have won. And a lot of those games last year, when they went 11-0 in 1-score games, they didn't play like they should have won. They didn't play that way. They played, like close games, but they had that pedigree, that playoff pedigree, that Super Bowl pedigree, that the coaching, the discipline where they wouldn't make penalties, they wouldn't make mistakes, they call the right plays. And this year is completely gone. And I don't know if it was from losing to the Eagles in the Super Bowl and, you're getting your tail whipped and there's just a lot of people aren't scared of the Chiefs anymore. I don't know if it's because the Chiefs have pretty much played an entire season, starting from this dynasty run. Mahomes has like over 20 playoff games or something like that. So he's basically played an extra season. A lot of these guys have played, an extra 10, 15 games in their career. So, if you got a guy that's played 4 seasons, he's really played 5. Like Trey Smith is in year 4, but his body's in year 5 because they played so many extra games. I don't know if it's fatigue. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's, playoff fatigue. I don't know if it's Super Bowl fatigue. I don't know if it's they're just tired. They don't care anymore. I don't know. So let's transition to the Chiefs playoffs chances. So as much as we're going to talk, bad about the Chiefs, or as much as we're going to say, you're done with them, and Chiefs fans are angry and upset, and You don't want to listen and to these people. You don't want to listen to Mahomes try to explain what's going on. It's not necessarily over. Like, as much as you could be frustrated, and that's the point of the show, is to really talk about how I feel, but I want to hear how you guys feel as well. And so it's not about that. Yes, they played bad, but it's not over. There's still a path to the playoffs. There's still an opportunity to make a run, but you have to turn 180 right now. And so here's kind of like how the odds would lay out, and here's how like the opportunity for the Chiefs to make the playoffs would happen. So they're sitting at 5-5. So currently they have about a 50% chance to make the playoffs. The AFC West is gone. I mean, it would have to be a total collapse from the Chargers and from the Broncos. They would have to basically kind of lose at least every AFC game that they played, but maybe like a lot, if not all of the games the rest of the season. So it's technically not out of reach, but it pretty much is. The AFC West is done. And Adam says, rough schedule ahead. And he's absolutely right. Absolutely right. If you looked at the beginning of the season, you might have thought, wow, the back half of the season's easy. But now that the Chiefs have dug this hole so far where it's going to be tough to climb out, and you have to win basically every game or go 6-1 to really put yourself in a position, because you play the Colts, who are probably the best offense right now. Jonathan Taylor might win MVP. Then you go to Dallas, Thanksgiving, primetime game, not looking great. And then you do have some easier games on your schedule. You play Texans and Titans at some point. You play the Chargers, Broncos, and Raiders again. So there are some games that are winnable, but you have to win basically 6 of 7 to even be considered, because you lost the tiebreaker to Jacksonville, who's playing great and is ahead of you in the playoffs. You've lost to Chargers, you've lost to the Broncos, you've lost to the Bills, and every team that you've lost to is in the playoffs. And that's where the Chiefs have screwed themselves. It is such a hole they have to climb out that, again, it's not impossible, and it might be very likely that, you could see the Chiefs going, as much as we're frustrated, you could see the Chiefs going on a 6-game winning streak or something like that. It's not out of the question, but it just doesn't feel confident because of what they've shown this year. I can only go off what my eyes have seen, and 10 games is a big sample size, guys. 5-5 win and loss, that's a big sample size. If we're talking the first 3 games of the season, I think it's different. We're talking 10 games. They've dug themselves this hole, and it's going to be hard to get out. So right now, yeah, the Chiefs at about 50%. So they've lost the head-to-heads, and they still have, there's the wild card competition pretty much sits at, you have Bills, Steelers, Texans, Chargers are all in the mix for the playoff spot. Basically, playoff spots 5, 6, and 7. They're obviously they're not going to win the AFC West, and they're not going to get the automatic bid top 4 spot. That just doesn't seem likely. But you've lost to the Bills, you have to beat the Texans, and you lost to the Chargers, and Steelers are in the mix. Aaron Rodgers did get hurt, so that might help. But you have a tough road ahead when it comes to trying to make the playoffs. Realistically, I think they need 10 wins at least, which that'd be going 5-2. But at that point, you're relying on other teams to lose, and you don't control your own destiny. You don't control the destiny going forward when it comes to making the playoffs. You've lost too many games. You've lost to the wrong opponents. You just can't do it. It would be like, if they were going to go 5-2, the Chiefs would have to lose to Dallas because it's an NFC team, and they'd have to lose like the Titans because the Titans aren't in the playoff race, and losing to them wouldn't matter necessarily. It doesn't affect, it doesn't help the Texans. If you lose to the Texans, they get a win on you and you get a loss, and then they have the tiebreaker because they beat you. So if the Chiefs are going to go 5-2, realistically, they would have to lose to, NFC team Dallas, and then they would have to lose to anybody that is not in the playoff run. But realistically, you would want to see them go 6-1, 7-0. You want to make it comfortable, but it's very possible that the Chiefs are going on the road to New England or, even Denver. If Denver doesn't end up getting the 1 seed, it's very possible the Chiefs are going on the road in week one to a team. Now, is that a draw that those teams want to have? Do you want to play the Chiefs on the road in the playoffs? If you're Denver at home, do you want to play them, or the Patriots? Do you want to have Patrick Mahomes, who's maybe gone on a hot streak last part of the season? Do you want him to come to your house and play, in a playoff game? That's another discussion, but we're talking trying to get to the playoffs. We have to get to the playoffs before we even discuss who we're playing and those situations. And there's a ton of tough matchups coming up. The next two are huge. The Colts and Dallas are probably the biggest two out of the remaining schedule. And the reason why is because if they lose to the Colts, you are going 5-6. And again, you're not necessarily numbers wise removed from the playoffs, but you're like the team's kind of like camaraderie is gone. I mean, if you're 5-6, when's the last time you've ever seen Tom Brady's Patriots go under 500? It's just a bad look. Again, they're not mathematically removed, but how are you going to get guys who have been on teams 15-2, been on 13-4, and say, "Hey guys, I need you. We have to make a run here," and you're 5-6, you're 5-7. Again, I'm not saying it's impossible, but it's going to be hard to rally the troops if they don't win these next two games. Just tell me this: is it easier to get your guys to fight for you when you're 7-5 or 5-7? If the Chiefs come out and win the next two games, I think they do have a real shot of making the playoffs and catching that fire at the right time. They can catch fire and make a huge run, go win 10 games in a row, and possibly get to the Super Bowl, maybe get back to the AFC Championship game. That is a possibility, because there is kind of that sweet spot where you don't want to get too hot too fast, but you want to get hot at the right time. It's kind of like college basketball. You don't want to get excuse me. You don't want to get too hot, at the end of the season, college basketball, and you burn out in the second round of, the round of 32. You don't want to do that. You want to get hot right, kind of creeping towards the end, and then you get those last 6 games to get to the championship, and you're just scorching hot. And that's where the Chiefs have a real chance to do that, because let's say they go 1-1 in the next 2 games. Let's say they beat the Colts but lose to Dallas. They're 6-6. You've got, at that point, you have 5 games left, and that is kind of like the perfect number to say, we're going to get hot and we're going to go win 5 games, and then we're going to win 3 playoff games to get to the Super Bowl, and then we're going to win the Super Bowl. Well, we're going to win 9 games in a row. That's not unrealistic for a team, not necessarily talking about the Chiefs, but just in general, like a team that is not the 1 seed, the 2 seed. You never see kind of those guys, because they've been playing good all season. So they don't go necessarily on like a hot streak. It's hard in the NFL to do that, to go on a hot streak, because teams are so more competitive, but compared to like college basketball, March Madness. But the Chiefs have a real chance where they could go on a hot streak at the end of the season. They could get it figured out, and they could go from being 5-5 right now, and maybe they do finish 12-5, or maybe they do finish 11-6, and they're the 6th seed, which at this point, again, I said this last week, you're treating it like LeBron in Cleveland the second time when he went to the Eastern Conference, and the goal was just to get to the playoffs. Just get to the playoffs, limp to the playoffs, get there. You just want to get there, and then you figure it out later. So you have to look at these next 7 games and really, it's hard to say, I kind of agree with Mahomes when he said recently that, regular season games are not must win, but this one to me is a must win. Last week was a must win, but this one, you go 5-6 and you don't beat the Colts, it's going to be hard to come back from that. And you're going to have everybody. You already have all of Kansas City fans upset. And you have, national media, ESPN, Fox Sports talking about the Chiefs being 5-5. You go 5-6, and everybody's talking about it again for another week. You have harder questions when it comes to pressers after the games or after practice. The pressure continues to build up and up. The more games you lose, the worse it gets. So you have to stick your foot down, put your foot on somebody's neck, and win some ball games and rattle off some wins in a row. Show some confidence at least. Show some fight. And so my transition line here is the team can still make the playoffs, but playing like this, they won't. Week 12 is a must win. And I 100% believe that they have to win this game morally for their locker room, for just having that fire to continue the season. Because at some point, and just being honest, Chiefs fans are used to these, 12, 13, 14 win seasons. If Chiefs go 5-6, some of my conversation next week on the show might be, should the Chiefs tank for a draft pick? And I'm being serious. Why would we try to, if the Chiefs go 5-6 or 5-7, just lose the rest of the season? Just why do I care if you win 9 games and you miss the playoffs? Why would I care? If the Chiefs go 5-7, lose them all, finish 5-12, and get us a top 10 pick, I don't care. I don't care if they finish 10-7 and we're missing the playoffs. For what? What is the point? If you have to make a decision at some point, as an owner, as a GM, as a guy that's building the team, Veach, of course, the guys are going to be competitive. Mahomes is not going to lose games on purpose. This is just how I would run the team or how I would visualize it. They're not going to do that. But at some point, you have to kind of look at what's worth it and what's not. And is it worth it to try to make a playoff run when you're 5-7? Or is it worth it to try to get a top 10 pick and you finish 6-11? I mean, it's one of those decisions. And if I was running the team, if I was the owner, and I know I have a need for a pass rusher and this is part of the problem, is the Chiefs can't get those elite pass rushers because they never have a high draft pick like that. So if they did not make the playoffs, let's say they finish 10-7. So you're probably picking around pick 14, 15, middle of the road. You didn't make the playoffs, but maybe 18 or 19 even. You might be around somewhere around there. But you missed the playoffs, so what's worth it? You're not getting a draft pick high enough to get an elite guy. You're going to have to maybe trade back anyway. So if you made the playoffs, you would have had a lower pick, but you're going to have to trade back because the middle of the road is it's not a great place to pick. You want to be in the top 10 because you have a real shot at somebody that's elite. So again, we might be having this conversation 2 weeks from now is, should the Chiefs tank? Because again, if they don't win the next 2 games, or if they lose the next 2, it's a conversation I'm starting. I'm starting it now at 5-5, but I know people were starting it if the Chiefs are going 5-7 and they lose the next 2. It's terrible. It's terrible to think about, but it's a real possibility. And something else that's a real possibility is you got to think about Travis Kelce and kind of his future as well. So he came back, and realistically, he kind of did the same thing his brother did. The Chiefs, the Eagles lost, and Jason Kelce thought about retiring. They lost in the Super Bowl. And he's like, I'm coming back for one more year. And then they lose in the first round of the playoffs, and he retires kind of not necessarily on a high horse, riding off into the sunset. It's more of a sad retirement. Still had a great season, still had a great career. I'm not taking that away from Jason Kelce, but it's not the same. And so Travis kind of, what I assume, was trying to do the same thing, which was lost in the Super Bowl, still wanted to come back, give it one more shot. And the Chiefs are going to end up on Christmas Day, which would be Travis Kelce's last game in Arrowhead, playing the Broncos, who you just lost to, for a chance to probably go to the playoffs. And if you don't win any of these games in between, you're really ruining the opportunity to have a great story of Travis Kelce winning his last game at Arrowhead. And because at that point, the Chiefs aren't going to play a home playoff game. If the Chiefs are making the playoffs, they're probably the 6th seed or the 7th seed. And so they're not going to play a home playoff game and for the rest of the way. I mean, if they were the 6th seed and the 7th seed made a run, that's the only way that they would make a home playoff game. So realistically, Travis Kelce's last game is Christmas Day. And what kind of story is that where you beat the Broncos to get into the playoffs on Christmas Day and it's Travis Kelce's last game at Arrowhead? You're going to ruin an opportunity to give one of your best players in franchise history, maybe the greatest tight end of all time, at least what I think he is, the opportunity to ride off on the high horse. And what I can see is that he's going to end up coming back next year because the Chiefs are going to finish and it's going to be a bad taste in his mouth. And now from last week, my cap rant about how the Chiefs have not paid the right guys. Now you're going to have to do it again. You're going to give, Travis Kelce is going to command some kind of money and you're not going to say no. You're not going to turn him away or let him go to a different team. So you're going to bring him back. You're going to have to overpay him a little bit, at least. Again, he's going to be 37, next year if he was to come back. So it's, it was supposed to be like that storybook ending, that fairy tale. And maybe that's not why it's happening because it's a fairy tale, but you have to think about kind of those things going forward. Is all of these next 7 games are super important, and they play out different stories going forward for the franchise for the next 5 years. It's not just about this year as well, but it really kind of begins the path going forward. Because after Tom Brady won his first 3 Super Bowls, they had a big lull between Super Bowls, and they call them, one large dynasty, but it was really 2. I mean, they won 3 early in the 2000s, and then they win another 4 or 3 in the 20 teens to tens range. So it's not necessarily that they had this crazy 20-year career where they won a bunch of Super Bowls in 20 years, but they won 7 in that many years. Colin says, we need Travis to retire. We have a good backup piece that need to fully integrate soon. I mean, I agree. And it's not even about backups for me. It is about the cap situation. You're paying Travis Kelce $20 million a year at 36 years old. And again, I'm not, and I gave him praise earlier. He's playing like he's 26. So I'm not hating on Travis Kelce. I'm not hating on, what he's done for the franchise and who he is or anything that he's done. I mean, he's brought so much fandom to the Chiefs that, you can't hate on the guy. But when we're looking at X's and O's, we're looking at salary cap. And again, you have to look multiple years in the future and decisions come from that. Well, if I got to pay Travis Kelce $15 million next year to come back to do one more goodbye tour before he retires, is that feasible? Is that reasonable? I don't know. I don't know if I agree with that. I don't know if I would do that if I was Brett Veach or Clark Hunt, Andy Reid. I would tell Travis, let's retire. Let's call it again. Let's call it a day. Just call it a day, because you have to start allocating, especially because the roster is not working. You're going to see a ton of turnover, I think, for the Chiefs in the offseason. Jawan Taylor will for sure be gone. You'll see Travis Kelce probably retire. And if he doesn't, I mean, that's a whole different situation, but I think he's going to retire. And you'll probably see Matt Nagy get fired. They'll bring in a whole new offensive coach. The offensive line will probably relatively stay the same, but you'll probably see a lot of defense get added. I think that they need pass rush, and you'll probably see them go in the draft, get a defensive line. You'll probably see them sign another defensive line because they have to allocate that money. The pay gap between defensive line and then like the rest of the players on the field, it's such a difference that you have to spend so much money on the D line because you got to be able to rush 4 to get to the quarterback. Colin says, is this the same situation we ran into with Tony G, which is why he went to ATL? I don't see Travis putting on someone else's uniform, but you're right. If he wants to come back, he's coming back. Yeah, I don't see Travis Kelce putting on another jersey, but we said the same thing about Tony Gonzalez. I mean, Tony Gonzalez, when I was growing up, was my favorite player, and then he backstabbed us and went to Atlanta. And that's just honestly how I feel. But do I see Travis Kelce? Could I see Travis Kelce leaving and going to the Giants to be in New York? Maybe. Or go play for the Jets? Maybe. Taylor Swift loves New York. I could maybe. but it would hurt. And I don't know. You probably would think, as much respect Travis Kelce has for Tony Gonzalez, you probably think he sees the kind of disconnect that Tony G has with the franchise now versus before he left. I would assume that he would probably operate on an idea that he doesn't want to have that same stigma that Tony G does. Because I'm kind of done with Tony Gonzalez, especially when he didn't mention the Chiefs in his Hall of Fame speech. Man, that's crazy to me. It's crazy. So let's move on to the Colts. So this is, we talk about a must win. We talk about, I can't believe I'm talking about Danny Dimes Jones going against Patrick Mahomes as a must win game. I mean, that's the situation that the Chiefs are in right now. They're in a situation where they have to go beat Daniel Jones, who barely was going to be in the league probably. And he's done a great job of turning it around. He's found a great situation in, Justin says, Indiana Jones, baby. Yeah, Indiana Jones. He's done a great job, coming to Indiana and putting up great numbers. The two losses, though, are kind of the blueprint of how to beat Daniel Jones. Again, he's not in that tier level with Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson. We're not putting him in that level. He's just playing in such a good system. He's a good system quarterback, and he has some elite talent, I would say. He's got a good arm, and he's mobile. He's very fast. He has the ability to get rushing yards as a quarterback. But and he's leading the number one offense. I can't even be upset. He's playing great. So all credit to Indiana Jones, Danny Dimes. But what helps him is he has the best running back in the league who's gonna maybe win the MVP. I mean, he's probably going to win the MVP if he continues. I saw a stat yesterday. It was saying that Jonathan Taylor is doing what Saquon did last year. Saquon finished with like 17 touchdowns and 2,000 yards or something. Had a great season for a running back. We're 10 games in, and Jonathan Taylor has 17 touchdowns. Jonathan Taylor might finish with 30 touchdowns and over 2,000 yards. I mean, he's good. If he keeps playing this way, he's going to win MVP. Now, all that said, I'm not actually worried about Jonathan Taylor. The Chiefs are notorious for playing very well against the run game, against running backs. They've in the past have held Derrick Henry to under 100 yards. The only running back that really gets him is James Cook, and James Cook is such an elusive back in the pass game as well that he just has the Chiefs number. But they held Saquon Barkley to 60 yards in the Super Bowl. Like the Chiefs and Spags playing very well against the run. So Jonathan Taylor not necessarily scares me that, I'm afraid he's going to go for 150 yards and 2 touchdowns and the Chiefs aren't going to be able to do anything. I would be shocked if that's the way that the game turned out. Just because, again, for what I've seen from the past, the defense is really good against the run. What am I scared of is that the Chiefs are horrible when it comes to spying mobile quarterbacks. And Danny Jones has a real shot of, if he doesn't have anybody open, which he has the weapons. Like let's not just pass up on who he's throwing the ball to. They've got Michael Pittman. He's probably maybe a top 15-ish receiver. Josh Downs, Alec Pierre. Alec Pierre's a great deep ball guy. He reminds me of Tyquan Thornton. He's a guy that is going to go get the ball. And Danny Jones likes to throw that thing up. And then they got the rookie tight end Tyler Warren. And the Chiefs have notoriously struggled with tight ends all season. You saw Dalton Kincaid go for 100 yards. I had Evan Ingram on my fantasy team last week, and I started him because he was playing the Chiefs, and I thought he was going to go crazy. They can't hold a tight end. So don't be surprised if Tyler Warren goes for 80 yards because you have Nick Bolton and Drew Tranquill guarding an elusive tight end. So Danny Jones, as much as I don't want to respect him, I have to. And that's why this is a must win for the Chiefs, is I have to respect him because of what he's doing, what numbers he's putting up. I have to respect him. The Colts are, and the other thing is that the Colts defense, they just traded for Sauce Gardner. They just went all in this year. They're trying to win the Super Bowl. They traded 2 first-round picks for Sauce Gardner. Sauce Gardner, one of the best young corners in the league, possibly the best corner in the league. I know the last few years he's kind of regressed a little bit, but he's still an incredible incredible defensive player. Rashee Rice might not be able to get open. Rashee Rice might not even be able to. You might see Rashee Rice go four catches for 30 yards if he's getting guarded by Sauce Gardner. That's how good Sauce is. And you have to compare. It's funny because you have to compare Sauce with Trent McDuffie because they come from the same draft class. Sauce got paid a year earlier, and Sauce made the big money, and then he got traded, which that's a whole different conversation for the Jets organization. But they paid him the top dollar, and then you saw what they traded him for. They got 2 first-round picks, and they got, I think, a D tackle or something crazy. Or I don't remember. They got Adion Mitchell, wide receiver, out of Texas. So you saw what they got. The Chiefs should have took a number from the Colts, and they should have traded McDuffie last season. They could have got a first-round pick and a third. They could have got something. And they're going to end up having to overpay for Trent McDuffie this offseason because Sauce Gardner has set the bar for the pay. If you think Trent McDuffie is as good as Sauce Gardner, which I don't know if he is or not, but Trent McDuffie is very good. He's a very good player. If Trent McDuffie is going to get paid by the Chiefs, you have to put him in the same conversation as Sauce Gardner as far as least annual, salary per year. As long as his contract, it's got to be in the ballpark. And we're talking $30 million, $30 million a year. And we're already talking about a team that I think has overpaid too many guys. So the Colts made the right decision going all in because you got a guy that puts your defense over the top. The Colts are allowing 20 points a game. They're a top 10 defense. And so what I think the Chiefs have to do, the Colts have a good defensive line. They're solid everywhere else, but they're really solid. The Colts remind me of like they have a bunch of B+ guys, and then they added Sauce Gardner, but all over around every guy's like a B or a B+. They just have very solid guys, very solid all around. So my formula for the Chiefs to win the game, I think, is they have to run the ball 20 times. I'm going to use my same strategy I thought the Broncos were going to do against the Chiefs last week. I think the Chiefs should do against the Colts this week, which is I think the Chiefs should focus on time of possession, running the ball. You need those long, 80 yards, 9-minute drives. You need to control the clock. You need to control the game. It is a home game. The other side is you have in the 2 losses that Daniel Jones has had, the issue was that the defense got to him as far as they sacked him multiple times. Like the Steelers had, I think, 3 or 4 sacks, and I can't remember who else they lost to, but it was all about getting to Daniel Jones. If you can get to Daniel Jones, you can get to the quarterback and not let him sit in the pocket, make decisions and make good throws. He's a head case. He can't make the right decision at that point. He starts to fumble the ball. I do believe he leads the league for quarterbacks in fumbling. So Justin says, I wonder what is the Chiefs defense efficiency on third down? Well, I know against the Broncos, it was horrible because we gave up 3rd and 15, 3rd and 7, and like a 3rd and 9. And it's a good point. I mean, that may be one of the bigger keys in the game is fixing your third down efficiency. I don't know why that word was so hard, but you have to fix that because they do great on 1st and 2nd down. You put yourself in position on 1st and 2nd down, where you give yourself 3rd and long. And that's the whole reason is you want to be on 3rd and long because then you can drop everybody back. You play the sticks, don't let anybody go. And that's why you see so many teams throw deep on 3rd down because most teams are just covering the 1st down marker. And a lot of teams they'll kind of let guys go past and just hope that they don't throw it. They're trying to get a 1st down. And I think the Chiefs have just become so predictable. And what you see a lot is depending on if it's 3rd and 15, you're not going to see Spags blitz. But if it's 3rd and 7, Spags is sending the dogs. You could call it out. You know what's happening. He's sending everybody. And it used to work, but they've been so predictable. Spags has been so predictable when it comes to 3rd down that they know it's coming. I mean, Bo Nix said it, and Chris Jones talked about it on his interview after the game. He said, yeah, Bo Nix knew exactly what play we were running on that 3rd and 15 that kind of got them in position to steal the game. Because that probably would have ended the game right there if they stopped the Broncos on 3rd and 15. And that was a game changer. That was a difference maker as far as the game. But so the for the Chiefs to beat the Colts, I think they have to run the ball and time of possession. And on defense, I agree. We cannot give up third downs. You have to get the defense. You have to get the other team's offense off the field. You have to give your offense more opportunities. You can't play good on first and second down and then give up long third downs. And you have to avoid red zone turnovers. If you get an opportunity to score, you have to score. It has to be a score. And they need to be sevens. They can't be threes anymore. We need touchdowns. You can't drive for 6 minutes, get down to the 15-yard line and throw a pick. It's dumb. That's a dumb mistake that you can't make. So if the Chiefs got over 20 carries, I think if they let Hunt, who's averaging last game 4.5 yards, who still has a lot of gas in the tank. I feel like they treat him like he's 50, but he's still a great runner. But they need to run under center a lot more as well when it comes to running the ball. Because when you run under shotgun, yes, you're giving yourself more options, the RPO, run pass option. And Mahomes loves to, take the passing option. It's just kind of in his nature. But when you show that you can run under center, when you're running under center, it's a real chance to kind of prove your dominance. You know what I mean? Like it's like, hey, we're lining up here. You line up here. Let's best on best. I've got 3 big tight ends. We brought in an extra tackle. We're going to run the ball. You stop us. It's kind of like a gut punch. When you can't stop the run, it's you're like, man, what are we going to do? Because they're just going to run over us all day. Because what happens is that you establish the run. They have to bring more linebackers in. And then what do? Play action pass. And then you have a deep ball. Versus last game, the Chiefs didn't run the ball. And all you see is Mahomes, 1-step drop. And I'm just going to throw it up. The perfect offense. And this was when Ben Johnson made it creative. But if you watch the Lions have, I think, one of the, like, it's like poetry in motion is what it feels like watching their offense. Because they are a run-first offense. They've got a 2-headed monster with Gibbs and Montgomery. But they play the play action so well. And that's why their offense is so dynamic. And that's why they've been one of the best offenses over the last, 4 or 5 years. Because they do play action so well. Teams have to respect the Lions' run game to then they have to react on the pass and the play action. So I think if the Chiefs can establish the run more, it opens up the pass. I mean, it's a simple kind of saying that's always been in the NFL or football in general. For my guys that have played football, it's you establish the run and it opens up the pass. And again, it's simple, but it's true. It is really true. So I think, giving predictions on the game, I think if the Chiefs do those 2 things, I think they have a good shot to win. It's at home. Again, I don't have full trust in Danny Dimes. I don't. So my score prediction, I think it's going to be again, if the Chiefs take their time, if they run the ball, I think you're going to see, and I think the Colts are going to try to of course they're going to try to outscore them, but I think they're going to try to play like run and gun. Like they're going to try to score as many points as possible. You're going to see a lot of deep balls. You're going to see Daniel Jones throw it up to Alec Pierre a bunch. You're going to see Tyler Warren get a bunch of throws off the play action. The Colts offense is good because they're doing exactly what I want the Chiefs to do. They have a very good run game, and then they can establish off the play action. They don't always have to throw out a shotgun. They don't always have to throw immediate pass. They can do RPOs, and you have to believe both. The teams don't respect the RPOs with the Chiefs because you don't believe in the run. You don't believe that they're going to actually hand the ball off. You see a lot of – and the Chiefs had this offense, this crazy high-flying offense, and it's been successful, but it's been kind of modified, and Eric Bieniemy had it one way, Matt Nagy had the other. The Chiefs need to just take a step back and get back to the basics. They need to get back to the basics of football, which is run the ball, play good defense, and do not have any turnovers. You want to cause turnovers, you don't want to have any turnovers. And I know it sounds stupid, But a lot of times, I think the Chiefs just get in their head. I think Andy Reid gets in that he wants to be trying to kind of cute, kind of cheeky, and do these, I'm going to do this, put Rashee Rice in the backfield, but then I'm going to flip it over to Kareem Hunt or something. Like he on 3rd and 1, we should be my best 11 versus your best 11. We're going to run it right up the gut. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But that is fundamental football. And the Chiefs have to get back to fundamentals. So my final score I've got is 31-27 Chiefs. I think the Chiefs are going to have to put up 30 to win. As much as they're going to have to be efficient with their each possession. They can't go down and throw an interception in the red zone, because I think the Colts offense is very good. And I'm not saying that the Chiefs defense is going to play great, but I've got Chiefs winning 31-27. And I think they get back to where they are back on a point where they can try to make the playoffs and make a run for the final season, for the rest of the season. So that's it, guys. I mean, if you guys have any things you guys want to talk about or anything, put it down in the chat. I love throwing your guys' questions up there. But, today's been fun. I love talking about the Chiefs. I love doing these shows. So I appreciate you guys for coming. But that's kind of it for me. And like I said, I'm going to be doing this every Wednesday, 7 p.m. I enjoy it. I love talking about the Chiefs. So, yeah. So that's it, guys. I appreciate it. And I'll, follow all the socials. You can find it on Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook. We got a Facebook group called Skin in the Game. YouTube has the live streams as well, also on Facebook. TikTok, I'm going to start trying to edit up some of these things and maybe throw out some reels and whatnot. So, but all right, guys, we'll see you next week.